In Sichuan province of China and the surrounding areas, the rain initially began as soft, steady drops falling on the tin roofs of rural homes. But within a few short hours, the peaceful sky turned into a roaring beast. For 14 relentless hours, the skies unleashed their fury. Swelling rivers until a dam built decades ago to regulate the waters could no longer withstand the pressure and burst open. A massive flood surged down like a vengeful tide, swallowing villages, roads, and memories. Over 6,000 residents were forced to flee, their possessions turned into debris floating in the murky currents. In the rugged terrain of Xiaozhong, the situation was no less dire. Another 7,000 people fled as floodwaters, driven by relentless rain, carved new paths through the land. Entire green hillsides disappeared in moments, with soil and rocks sliding down to bury fields and block roads. The elderly were carried on the backs of neighbors, while children clung to their parents, their eyes wide with fear and their voices silent. The air was thick with the scent of wet earth, sweat, and desperation as communities that had stood for generations watched their foundations crumble. In the Tibetan highlands, where the air is thin and rivers flow swiftly, the disaster took on a different hue. The Yarlung Tsangpo River swelled beyond its banks, bursting forth with a ferocity that felt almost personal. Villages perched precariously on steep slopes were no match for the onslaught. Over 300 villagers raced to safety, their footsteps echoing on the rocky earth as they fled the wrath of the river. Homes built with care, passed down through generations, were reduced to rubble in minutes. The mountains, usually a source of solace and strength, stood indifferent as the waters claimed all in their path. The Ministry of Emergency Management of China, headquartered in Beijing, issued a grim report. In just the first half of the year, floods across the country caused staggering economic losses totaling 54 billion yuan, roughly 7.6 billion US dollars. These numbers, cold and clinical, reflected the painful reality. Roads, the lifeblood of rural life, were submerged under torrents of water, and over 2.19 million hectares of fertile land turned into useless wastelands. 307 people were confirmed dead or missing, leaving families broken, lost in grief with no words to comfort them. But what was lost wasn't just homes or crops. It was dreams, years of hard labor, and the hope of farmers. In Sichuan, Gansu, and Liaoning, they had planted hope alongside their crops, nurturing rice paddies and wheat fields with sweat and patience. Now, all that hope lay shattered, submerged beneath the murky waters that refused to recede. The heartache rippled through tight-knit communities where neighbors became lifelines and shared grief bound them closer. Families stood on the edges of their ruined fields, their calloused hands empty of purpose, staring at the devastation before them. In Sichuan, rescue teams waded through chest-deep water to pull families from collapsing homes. In Gansu, where the lowest hills are prone to crumbling, landslides buried roads and trapped villagers in remote hamlets. In Liaoning, rivers swelled beyond their banks, turning quiet towns into islands surrounded by churning waters. Thousands were rescued, pulled from rooftops or airlifted from precarious slopes. Their lives spared, but their futures uncertain. Meteorologists from the World Meteorological Organization, WMO, had been sounding alarms for years. Asia is warming at twice the global average, leading to a cycle of escalating extreme weather events. Hotter air holds more moisture, causing rain to become heavier, more unpredictable, and more intense than ever before. Floods, once rare, have become a recurring nightmare. striking with increasing frequency and ferocity. In response, the Chinese government has mobilized the entire nation. Billions of yuan have been allocated for infrastructure rebuilding, with funds focused on the hardest-hit regions. Engineers have descended on Sichuan and Zhejiang to reinforce embankments, riverbanks, and dams. Aid trucks have rolled into rural counties, bringing food, blankets, and medical supplies. Agricultural brigades have distributed seeds, fertilizers, and tools to farmers whose livelihoods have been washed away. However, alongside the relief efforts, a lingering unease spreads throughout the nation. The latest reports from WMO warn that the months ahead hold even greater risks. Summer, still in its early stages, promises more rain, more floods, and more destruction. People in Sichuan, Gansu, and across western China look up at the dark skies, their hearts filled with anxiety. Will the levees hold? Will the rains return more ferocious than before? But amidst the wreckage and the mud, something else has taken root: resilience. In Sichuan, farmers return to their fields, determined to replant the first seeds. In Zhejiang, neighbors come together, clearing debris and rebuilding homes brick by brick. In Tibet's highlands, stories of survival spread, becoming a beacon of hope that warms the hearts of all. The human spirit, battered but unbroken, continues to rise in the wake of nature's fury. People are not only restoring their fields and homes, but also rebuilding their faith, unity, and will to endure. The floods may have taken much, but they could not take the fierce will to survive. From the misty hills of Sichuan to the wind-swept plains of Gansu, people stand tall, their faces turned toward the future. They plant new seeds, both literal and metaphorical, trusting that from the devastation, something stronger, something lasting, will grow. For while the rains will come again, the rivers will rise once more. The people too will rise again, standing firm against the challenges that lie ahead. This is the unchanging truth in the cycle of nature, the will to survive, to unite. Hello everyone, it's another evening. A sudden storm hit with such intensity that no one had time to prepare. The sky shifted from bright sunlight to a heavy gray, and the first hailstones began to fall while people were still working or shopping. Emergency alerts arrived too late, and by the time they were aware, the destruction had already begun. In Qingchuan County, it started with soft tapping sounds. Then large hailstones slammed into the streets. Some were as big as small eggs, falling continuously and striking everything in their path. Within minutes, the roads disappeared under thick layers of ice. People rushed indoors, vehicles skidded, buses came to a halt, and shop awnings collapsed under the weight. The city seemed frozen, not from snow, but from solid ice. Videos from residents showed streams of melting hail running like rivers through the streets. Water and ice mingled, flooding sidewalks and overflowing into drains. It looked as if winter had fallen straight into the middle of summer. In nearby villages, the situation was no better. Streets were submerged in muddy water, parked cars drifted like leaves, and houses stood partially underwater, their windows dark from power outages. Across many districts, power lines collapsed, and transformers exploded in the distance. Some neighborhoods stayed in the dark all night. Repair crews worked non-stop, but the damage was widespread. Shops and small businesses suffered heavy losses. Broken glass fell, roofs leaked, and street markets lost all their produce. Vendors swept shattered glass even as hail and rain continued to pour outside. The rural areas were hit the hardest. Farmers lost vegetables, fruit trees, and even tea plantations. Branches were torn, leaves shredded, and crops destroyed in less than an hour. By the next morning, local authorities arrived to assess the devastation. Some farms would need weeks to recover, while others might not return until the next year. Initial reports already showed serious financial damage. This storm reminded many of Ziyang in August 2022, when more than 400,000 households lost electricity. Streets were flooded and buildings cracked. The weather back then, just like today, arrived without warning. Sichuan has faced such events before. In August 2012, Huan City was hit by egg-sized hail, destroying over 12,000 homes and injuring hundreds of thousands. Yet, storms still managed to surprise. Experts say that mountains, sudden temperature swings, and humid air are key factors triggering violent storms. August and September bring the highest risks, and each year the danger grows. In Jinyuan, this month's hail not only froze the city, but also drowned it. Drains failed, and melting hail mixed with rain flowed through markets and alleyways like a flood. Local rescue teams acted quickly, clearing fallen trees, repairing power lines, and distributing tarps to families with damaged roofs. Relief groups went door to door, checking on the injured and providing help, but warnings can only go so far. In towns like Chinuan, people act fast, seek shelter, and hope each storm leaves less damage than the one before. Experts warn that more storms could strike before the end of August. Communities have begun gathering, sharing food, and building safer shelters. What this storm left behind is not just broken glass and flooded streets, but a sharp reminder that nature always moves faster than any warning. If you found this video helpful, please like it and share it with others. Together, we can raise awareness about what's happening in China. Leave a comment below. What do you think should be done to prevent future disasters like this? Subscribe for more real-time reports on China, the environment, and global crises. Together, we stay informed. Together, we stay prepared. Thank you, and stay safe.
Nature doesn't send us warnings, but we can. Floods, earthquakes, wildfires, and storms are striking harder and faster than ever before. By subscribing, you are not just watching, you are joining a movement to stay alert, stay informed, and helps others to do the same. Hit the subscribe now because the next disaster won't wait, and neither should you. Be ready and be aware.